James did too. But you know what? He's switching the topic now. And this topic he now embarks on will cover from verses 19 to 27. We're just going to look at 19 and 20 here this morning. But let's read through 27 just to get the whole context. He says, "My dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. Not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like a man who looks at his face in the mirror, and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like." Verse 25, "But the man who looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues to do this, not forgetting what he has heard, but doing it, he will be blessed in what he does. If anyone considers himself religious, yet does not keep a tight rein on his tongue, he deceives himself, and his religion is worthless. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world." And he begins by saying, everyone should be, every Christian, every PCCer should be quick to listen and slow to speak. Okay? There you have it. He uses quick and slow. So what does that speak to? Priorities, right? What should happen first? What should follow? And he's saying that what should happen first is we should be quick to listen, slow to speak. So this is a topic about relationships. It's a talk about relationships with one another, and also could be a topic, and we will see next week, about a relationship with God. Wherever we have relationships, we listen and we speak, right? So that's a relational function, unless you talk to yourself, right? And listen to yourself, which that's a whole other issue. But you get the idea. So this is a basic level. Now, invert it. They were obviously being quick to speak and slow to listen. And he's saying, this is a problem. This is how you've been rolling. Everybody's talking. You got a bunch of talkers, but you got no listeners. So you got to turn it around. Now, why do you got to turn it around? Think of what happens when you listen. Well, you're listening right now. I'm talking, you're listening, right? When you listen, assuming you're listening, well, here's the deal. If you start talking, I'm not listening right now, you're listening. If you start talking, then you stop listening, right? If I just told everybody right now, okay, take 30 seconds, turn to your neighbor, and tell them what street you took to come to Pacific Coast Church, right? If everybody did that, how would that work? You'd look and say, well, I came down Camino de Estrella, and I went to Pico, and I went to Vista Hermosa. But the person next to you is saying at the same time, well, I went down Pico, I went down Estrella, right? Nobody is able to what? Learn. See, that's what listening does. Ultimately, when you listen, you learn. Okay? Pretty basic. But what happens as Christians? When we learn, what do? We grow and we develop. Invert it. No listening, no learning, no growth, no development. And what's interesting is, a lot of times we think in our Christianity, in our relationships, that if we can talk about a bunch of stuff, then in some way we're growing and developing, and it's completely inverted in the church. It's like if you can listen to stuff, that's when the growth takes place. So at a base level, and I know this sounds very elementary, But it's critical because the church was inverting it and thinking, hey, we're all talkers. We all know. We're all exchanging information. And guess what? They weren't growing. They weren't developing. They were immature, and they thought they were. They were being duped. It was a head fake. They were fooling themselves. So when we talk about how to avoid a fake Christianity, just jot this down real quick. Practice being a good listener. Practice being a good listener. Practice closing your mouth and opening your ears. Has to do with an order issue. I remember when, and I look at this and I go, okay, what makes this Christian, right? This is in the church. I mean, right? Wouldn't every teacher in school say, be a good listener, right? What makes this inherently Christian? Susan and I, when the kids were small, used to take them a couple months on a Sunday afternoon after church to a local nursing home. And the reason we took them there is to visit people that were old and forgotten. And there are quite a few people in nursing homes, and this is the last stop, right? They're not moving out, at least knowing about it. And so we would, go room to room and kind of introduce ourselves. And of course, the older folks love to see kids. And, love to see the, young, wanted to kiss them and, hug them. And it put the kids in awkward positions. I remember they always grossed out on the smell. We'd walk in the nursing home and they'd go, oh, there's that smell again. And, they'd resist it. And if the old folks were eating, oh, they're drooling. We'd try to go to lunch. I don't have an appetite now, and just kind of do that whole thing. But they would always come out blessed because they picked up the spirits of somebody. But you know what we did 99% of the time when we go from room to room? Listened. Listened to them talk. And go on, and on, and on, and on. Now what was happening there? Okay, you say, well, why did they go on and on and on? Well, they got no one to talk to, right? They got no one to download with. And so when we come, they talk and download. Now, what just took place there? If we listened, who were we caring for? The older person, right? Now, if all she does is talk, or he, who are they caring for? Them. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but I'm saying that's the dynamic, and that's why this issue is inherently Christian. Because when we listen to other people, we are actually loving them. We're valuing them. We're taking an interest in them. When all we are is talkers, we value ourselves. We take an interest in ourselves. It's all about the me monster. And when Christianity is summed up in two statements by Jesus, like what's the most important commandment? He says, love God with everything you got and love one another as yourself. How can you love somebody if you don't listen? Because when you listen, you will learn. You are valuing, you are investing, you are participating, you are caring. If all you do is chat, that's all about you. That's why this is inherently so Christian. Because we're talking about the community of believers. Okay, how do I do that? I don't know. He didn't say. He didn't give the details. Here's what it takes to be a good listener. I can give you a couple tips. Ready? Ask questions. And I intentionally stated in the plural. Questions. Because to ask questions means you had to listen to the answer of the first question to have a follow-up question. If you just ask a question, that's an icebreaker. It's not relational. And it will prevent a temptation that we all have of interrupting or injecting, right? You know how it goes. So, what do you think about those Kings? Huh? Pretty amazing, wasn't it? Yeah, I thought it was amazing. Kopitar, that breakaway was pretty. Oh, I saw that and I recorded that, and I was actually at the game, and I was sitting with two friends, and it's pretty amazing because the New Jersey Devil fans. I mean, they went off. One guy speared a beer on me, and I'm like, dude, we got to pray, and and before you know it, yeah, and I'm at home, and my wife, she cooked a great steak dinner, and the first question's like. Right? Because the interjecting. Because what you did is just give me a platform for me. See? Because I wasn't really listening to your answer. I was processing while you were talking. And then I'm saying, I got something for that. I got something for that. I. But if you ask more than one question, you listen to the answer. Hey, what do you think about those Kings? Yeah, Oh, did you go to the game? Yeah. Well, how was the game? Pretty soon. Oh, yeah. Did you go with your wife? Oh, yeah, and you got to listen. And the more you fight the temptation to interject and interrupt will highlight your more need to listen, right? So ask questions. Secondarily, don't be afraid of silence. And that's where we get into kind of some interesting issues with, different temperaments, right? Because some people are talkers. Some people think out loud, right? Some people think before they talk. Other people talk before they think. Well, if you talk before you think, this is kind of your life verse. I don't know what else to say, because it does say, be slow to speak and quick to listen. So, it is what it is. We can help each other with this, but don't be afraid of silence. And that's kind of the weird deal too, right? We don't like to think a lot, contemplate a lot. We want to fill space, and if there is space, it feels awkward. Especially with people, now if you're talking about husband and wife, or we're talking about kids, we can hang with the space. But if it's friends, there's a tendency to jump in again. How are those Kings? What do you think about those Kings? Okay, well, let me tell you what I think about the Kings, right? Too much time went by. I got to fill that. No, just let it sit. Let it become awkward. That might be a good thing. You might be shocked. And we can help each other. There's plenty of people in my life. I'm by nature not somebody who thinks out loud. Now, that may be a surprise to you, because I'm doing all the talking here. But I'm not. Some people I know think out loud. So if I'm talking and they get a thought, right? If they don't contain that thought, guess what they're doing? They're interjecting and interrupting. So I'll just politely say, could you let me keep talking? Could you just hold it for a second? And if they do it again, and I'll say, you're interrupting. Or I can just suck it up and walk away and go, I'm avoiding that person because they're a blabbermouth, right? So we can help each other. And we all have that. Haven't you ever been to dinner or been somewhere and the person goes on and on and on and on and on. And you walk away from that, and what do you walk away from? You know a lot about them, and they know zero about you, right? But they don't care. And the older they get, they won't care. Grandmas and grandpas are worse. I'm a grandpa. Okay, so, and I get it. My kids will say that. Well, oh, you want me to ask Dad? Well, he gave me a 3-point thesis, and on what that should be and shouldn't be, and da-da-da-da. And it's like, why do I do that? Especially if they don't want it and it's not helpful. There's another tip. I'm just throwing this out. Don't offer if they're not asking. You know how you just like, because it's a me monster again. Well, I know something. And I'll tell you what, now we're getting deep here. Okay, this is a huge challenge for me, and especially when I see somebody struggle and I know I can help, and they ain't asking. Because I'm thinking, I can help you. Well, maybe, maybe not. I know I got the answer, but you're not asking. But maybe if you walk through this school of hard knocks, you'll be helped better. Because God wants you to teach you a lesson. So I got to discipline and just zip it. Because otherwise, if I offer it, and then they don't do it, then I'm tempted into what? I told you, right? It's still about me. So this is a very subtle thing. And you'll kind of battle in your soul with it. Now, this isn't to say, okay, now when you go outside, by the donut table and everything, everybody's just silent. How you doing? Good. What does doing mean? What is doing for you? How are you? What is it, come on. What do you think of these donuts? Why do you like these donuts? Because I asked 4 questions and not 2. Don't get all weird that way, okay? This is just kind of this inside stuff. Like I said, it's below the surface. And just at a base level, monitor the airtime. When you walk away from an engagement with somebody or whatever, think, who did all the talking? And if it's kind of you, say, I've got to take note of that. I'm going to try to do a better job of that. Okay, now what's interesting, though, in our passage, he said everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. So we've got 2 slows. 2 things that are lumped together to slow down in, and he's connected anger with speaking. And he's saying, slow down, partner, on those. Be careful of those. Now, he didn't change topics. That word anger, orge, isn't hothead. It isn't just blowing off. No, it's a simmering. It's a harboring. It's a festering kind of anger that starts to own you. And what happens is, if we allow that to take place, if we're quick to do that, over time, that will start to affect our ability to listen. Right? Think about it. If you're angry with someone, how easy is it to listen? Spouses, you know this, right? Get in an argument, somebody goes, well, I don't want to hear that. I can't listen to that. Why? Because I'm mad. I'm angry. When I have couples come in and want marital counseling, they usually come in because something isn't working and they're mad. I never get people that make appointments with me and say, hey, nothing's wrong. Praise the Lord. We just want to let you know the blessings we're living out. It just doesn't happen, right? They come in and it's just, it's problem central. But it's emotional. They're mad. And there's an interesting dynamic. Because I'll say, okay, tell me the problem. And one of them will speak up. And they'll start to describe. What do you think happens, like, within the first 45 seconds? The other spouse interrupts and interjects and says, no. That spouse has a hard time sitting there to listen because they're mad. So being angry inherently just hinders, it closes the eardrums and puts a filter on our eardrums and hinders our ability to actually interact. And what's interesting is that counseling appointment, depending on, now I'm the third party, unbiased Bible guy who won't take sides, okay? And so that feels safe. Until, if I start to qualify something and say, hey, you really need to back off because the way you're coming across, what did I just do there? In their mind, I just took a side. And because they're mad, that starts to filter even how they're going to hear me. That's how anger works. It's very powerful, very dangerous. Okay? And he's saying, boy, we got to be slow on that, because in verse 20 he says, for a man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. So, a Christian who is harboring anger, if you think you can live that way, you're fooling yourself. It's a head fake. It's not real. So when we talk about how to avoid a fake Christianity, just real quick, jot it down. Don't accommodate an angry attitude. Don't accommodate an angry attitude. Personally, don't accommodate your angry attitude. Don't validate it. Don't tolerate it. It's dangerous. And we got to see it that way. We got to see it as sin and severe. Paul warned about this when we were in Ephesians 4:26. He said, "In your anger, do not sin. Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry. And do not give the devil a foothold." So, reality, you will get angry. Survey says that every Christian, assuming that, you become a Christian in whatever, your 30s or 40s at the latest, every Christian through their Christian life will probably experience one church split. Some more. So every Christian will experience the Hatfields and McCoys right within the doors of a worship center. How does that happen? It happens by accommodating anger. It happens by redefining it. It happens by validating it. If you notice, any church split will start with people not listening, then they start talking, and then they get angry. Any divorce will start with people not listening, they do all the talking, they get angry. That's the process. That's how it goes. And if it's just kind of embraced and redefined and edited and embellished on the way to allow this process to take place, the process will always yield the same thing. So we got church splits in Jesus' name. How does that work? It doesn't. It's fake. What ticks you off? What can cause you to simmer? And what's interesting is that what gets us angry at a base level, I mean, there's a lot of smoke at the end of the car, right? We can look at the tailpipe and go, whoa, it's blue today, and it's green, and it's gray. But when you get under the hood, what's really at the root of our anger? It's always the same. You feel disrespected or devalued. It could be wrapped in a sports package. It's Staples Center. And my team is the Kings. But guess who's sitting next to me? A New Jersey Devil. And he's ruined, and he's standing up, and when they score, he's going, "Kings suck." And that starts to tick me off. Why? Because I'm feeling disrespected and devalued. Because that's my team. I have nothing to do with the team. I don't make money on the team. But I've adopted them. So they're important to me. So what am I tempted to do when the Kings score? Yeah, right? And here we go. The feud. Could be wrapped in your favorite church. Could be wrapped in politics. But we're good at saying, no. It's a righteous anger. That's always a good one, right? And we immediately go to Jesus in the temple, right? Because he was flipping tables over, pulling out whips. He was ticked. So I can be ticked if it's a righteous tickness, right? That's what we do. Here's the deal. It's a cop-out clause. Show me the last time you were ticked about something that didn't impact you. So how do I do it? Know your hot buttons. Your hot buttons, now, know the smoke. I mean, underneath, it'll always be issues about devalue and disrespect. But what is it? I mean, right? Husbands, wives, we've got this down to a science, right? You know the hot buttons of your spouse because you've got a history there. And so you know this topic will make them feel devalued and disrespected. Now, you could sit there all day long and go, but they shouldn't. They shouldn't, because that's not what I mean. And if they only knew, and you could present your side of the story, but if you just back up and say, but this is how they feel, then okay. So we're good at knowing other people's hot buttons, but what about yours? Do you know them? Second